I forget which episode number this is, but this is our regular series. Can we talk about your WordPress projects? I've invited my friend Imogen on to talk about her new product called the Website Identity Framework. And I know Imogen because we attended Agency Transformation Live, which was supposed to be a live conference in the UK. And it was going to be my first visit there. I was going to get to meet all these people I know online, and I didn't get to do that. But they broke out into work groups or masterminds where you were assigned a table, so to speak, a virtual table. And we all got together and you talk through the transformation of your agency or the transformation of your product or whatever it is you're working on. That's how I met Imogen. And we have continued to meet. Everybody else is either in the UK, Ireland, or the Netherlands. It's been great because we get to support each other. We get to give feedback. I didn't think that I needed accountability. I thought, I'm a project manager, right? I could stay on task and get my things done, but it makes a big difference when you know that those people are going to be looking at your stuff in a week or two. So you got to get it done. So that's how I know Imogen, and she's a lovely person. So Imogen, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into the meat of this thing.
I'm based in the UK, in the Midlands, and I've been in the web space now for about 5 years. If you roll it back a little bit before that, I did have a spell where I used to teach as well. I like to think one of my strengths to bring to the table is to be able to explain things to people from their perspective. I know it's really difficult in our industry because it's very jargon-led and we know all kinds of real technical stuff. But it's always the case the user is the one that doesn't understand what we do. As things progressed over the years, I learned WordPress on the job, so to speak. And one of the things that started to count for me was how people present themselves to other people and the identity. Because as a business owner, one of the biggest things that I struggled with myself was identity and knowing who I was. How to present myself. I've worked in kind of corporate where you assume a role, don't you, in a corporate environment, and you're this person and you do this job and you've got that title and your purpose is given for you. Well, when you work for yourself, you have to find that somehow, and you have to, do I be like this? Do I be like that? It's really difficult to know, do you have to put on this air of being professional? Are you allowed to be yourself? If you are yourself, what does that actually look like? So that has always been a struggle. How should we be? When we're day to day in our lives, it's okay. But I think as soon as you have a business attached to it, it's almost like you're on center stage and you've got to decide or work out how you've got to act because you don't have that role that comes with a job where you're, on a payroll and stuff. That's always been something I've been really interested in. And I think the two have started to trickle and come together at some point. Now it's evolved into this, what we're going to talk about today. Quite often that's why it comes out on the content front, because if you don't really know what you are and who you help and how you help people, you might know the ins and outs of how you actually do the mechanics in your work, but your prospects and your clients, they don't need to know that the ABC that you do sitting at your desk. They need to know the result that they're going to get. And that's really hard for a lot of people to transfer that around. They're their prospects looking in through the shop window rather than explaining it in more jargony terms, or this is what we do. A bit like an accountant, they do their accounts, but they might do their accounts, but they're actually perhaps saving them money so that they can reinvest and grow their firm, or they can take their family on holiday, or whatever it might be. That's the kind of result that people can identify with, and that's what's quite difficult. When you're in it, you're in the middle of the forest, you can't see it, it's really difficult. Then to try and explain things, well, this is how you need to see it, this is how you need to, it's hard because your customers are not you, they don't know what you know. All these things in the pot together to bring something that can actually form a process that people work through. And when they work through it, then they have an understanding because they're doing it. Otherwise, it's so difficult to explain to people. So by doing, people learn and they find out lots about themselves as well. and find a happy place that they can be themselves. When you try and be somebody else, or you think you have to act in a certain way, it just comes over as inauthentic.
Exactly.
Unauthentic.
Okay, so those of you who are students in the academy, we teach about content collection. We teach a process for that. It involves all of the project managing, like setting proper expectations about getting the content on time, incentivizing your client to get it done on time, penalizing them when they don't, where to put this stuff in your project documents, the mechanics of getting the content on time. Okay. Also, out there in the world, there are lots of these. Here's a method for getting content from the client. Here's the things you need to ask. Here's what you need to teach them, blah, blah, blah. What Imogen's thing, the website identity framework, what it does is it takes it back a step. Now, those of you who may follow Nathan Ingram and have looked at this book or watched one of his presentations, he talks about dealing with problem clients. One of the clients that he talks about is the question mark. That's the client that isn't really sure about their message. They aren't sure how to say their message or what they even want to accomplish with their website. He says you sometimes need to leave those clients behind. But what Imogen's tool does is it helps you to deal with that client, because it's a walkthrough of what is my identity. It goes back even a further step. So it's our goal here in our group and in the Project Managers Academy to give you the tools that you need for all the stuff. I'll tell you what you need to do with project management, but all the stuff around project management, that's what we're trying to do here. And I just really found that Imogen's tool was just really very well thought out. I'm not disparaging anyone else's tool. You can get bits and pieces from a lot of different things, but I just found this was very helpful. So why don't you tell us all about it? I know that as I went through it, I was actually going through the steps for myself. I want to make the point that this is good for you as an agency owner if you don't know what your message is or you feel you need to get your identity together, but it's also a white labeled product. Why don't you talk about all of that?
Definitely. I think one of the biggest things is to do this on yourself. I think when you follow through the process, you start to see how it can be really helpful for your client. So if I tell you it's been set up as a product, it's not a course, it's a product. The idea is that you have a document which is called the Website Identity Framework. I call it the WIF for short because that's easier. And it's broken down into sections because the one thing we can't do is quite a big document. I won't scare you with how many pages it is, but it's big. You cannot give your client all of it in one go. The idea is to break it down, and it falls into natural phases. A couple of them can be grouped together, and the raw document is in Google Slides. It's broken down into 7 sections, and each section there are actionable steps for the client can go away and work on it by themselves. Then you come together and you talk about it. And when you get through to that end of that first phase, then you're sequentially ready to move on to the next. Before you know it, your client will know who they help, why they help them, and be able to articulate it, so that the person that is reading their website says, that's exactly my problem, and these guys look like the people that can solve it. It's written in a language they can understand, because I don't go into things like your target audience and what book they read and all that kind of thing, because it's about what people say about you. You need to engage with current clients, past clients, and actually say, what's the transformation been? And that's what you need to talk about, rather than the nitty-gritty of what you do. Shall I do a bit of a share and you can have a look at what I'm talking about?
Let's do a bit of a share, would you?
Okay.
Oh, by the way, I'm not making fun of Imogen's accent. I adore her accent, and I just love the way that Brits talk.
So this is the website. This tells you a bit about the ins and outs. There's a couple of videos there that go into a bit more explanation. I would say as well that this product this year has been about testing the product. I had some very, very wonderful people, yourself included, help me look through this, test it out. I've had people that have used it out in the wild, as I say, with their clients, collated the feedback that it is really very, very helpful for both parties. It's nothing that I've done to reinvent the wheel. What I've done is to try and put it all into a process. You can dip in and out depending on your own experience. It gives you a process you can work through with your clients so you don't have to stress. It starts a conversation. It makes it about them, because that's what it's got to be about before you even think about what's the website going to look like, and what's the menu going to be, and what's the structure. It does cover that kind of structure as well. So let's have a look inside. It's housed in a portal. You have all the files, and I'll tell you what they are in a minute. What's really the most useful part is some video training, because it's really important that if you're going to use a document, you need to be able to talk your way around it. Which is why I say, actually, you might find, well, I need to use this on myself. So, you have a good understanding of your own business and how you communicate that with your clients. With yourself, one of the testers giving me feedback, whether it's it's got to be something that can really make a difference to people's processes. As web agencies and designers, developers, we actually have to know a lot of things. And realistically, we cannot be expert in every single thing. The more guidance and processes we can help to lower our stress levels. Really, why this came about as well was because I was so frustrated seeing the same conversations people were saying in groups. I'm still waiting on content. It's been 6 months. I'm still waiting on content. There's got to be a reason why they are waiting on content. It's because the client is overwhelmed or just does not know what to say. They don't know how to approach it.
I wanted to also mention to my students who are watching that when Imogen said you have to break it down, remember that's one of our 6 principles of productivity. You have to break the job down.
Yeah, definitely. But just to say as well that a process like this will give you the foundations of what that content is going to look like. These are the problems. This is what people say about me. Then you go create the actual content itself. So in the files, they come in, the main format to work from is a Google slide doc. The link to that is here. You just grab yourself a copy of that. I did put that up just to have a look. Oh, what does it look like? Here it is. Okay. So it is white labeled. The idea is that it's meant to be as fuss-free, because I've taken a few courses and had processes and things given to me, and then I've got to spend a long time customizing it and making it my own and taking this bit and that bit. You end up not doing it. So I was really conscious to not add to the workload. There is obviously going to be a bit of work involved, but I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. So this is all white labeled, and the actual document itself is grayscale. You can customize your logo and so on. It takes you step by step. You go through, you set the scene with the client, and sometimes, this little bit before you really get going on the discovery or you're looking further into the content, it can be a bit awkward, and you want to get going with the client. This is a real icebreaker as well, because you know exactly from sign off, you sign that proposal off, you're really happy, you've got the job, and then you're ready to get going, and then you're like, okay, so what do I do now? This is where you get started, and you start that conversation with your client. There's a couple of scene setters, and then before you begin, this is helping to put the client into the right kind of mindset and frame it before you get started. Then the 7 sections. So we look at what you do, who you do it for, and how do they buy it. These are brainstorming sections. The idea is that your client can go off and work on things, and you reconvene. You break it down into chunks and you work on section at a time. The first couple of sections pair nicely. And then there's things like mind maps here that can help people just get their ideas down on paper. If you share the Google Doc, you can do it that way. Some people I know who have done meetings, they write in the comments area at the bottom and they share the document with their client. Depends how you like to work. You can have a PDF version. There is a PowerPoint version available as well. But everything you can get coming through the Google Slide Docs. You can customize fonts and add your logo on as well. We look at what they do, then we look at what makes them unique. It's not necessarily about being different, it's about being you. It's about what you bring to the table as yourself. I think for me, this was such a critical thing that I could not get my head around, because I thought I had to be different. What I really needed to do was be myself. That's really hard to understand sometimes. I think it's almost like giving people permission to say, you are you, you are unique, be the person that you are. When you have clients and you speak to them on the phone, or you speak to them over a Zoom call, think about how you conduct that. You just take that a step further, and that's how you are. So why not be that person? But it does go back to that acting a certain way. It's the same for any business, I'm sure. And then, so you're going through the identity, you're going through what makes them unique, you're going through the customer journey, you're looking at the main key services and the top section where somebody could know your whole offering pretty much before they're halfway down the homepage. Because ultimately you want people to, the next step from the homepage is getting them onto page 2 and to get that interest. So the people want to hit a website and know exactly that they're in the right place, and the WIF will help unravel all of that. Business owners are so in their own business that sometimes they can't see what they think are the important key services, if you like. It actually isn't from the priority of the prospect, because we make assumptions, and we're very good at making assumptions. We need to actually go and ask people, and especially people that we work with, ask them the right questions about transformation. That gives us so much content. Sometimes it's the simple things, is just to peel it back, to go step back just a bit, to dig at this first. The result is that the content will naturally flow. We do go down onto, we outline the navigation as well, the pages and structure. So it's an overview. Obviously, it's a simplified overview. Some sites will be more complex, have more hierarchy to them, pages, structure, and so on. But this gives you that summary. I'm on the right page. Here are people that can really help me solve my problem. They get me, they're talking in a language that I understand, and I'm going to stay and read some more. There's many, many steps before you even know about a prospect. We know that really, but quite often we forget that. But I was going to go down to show you. So let's have a look at something on the navigation. You're looking at this section here, telling somebody pretty much everything that you do. The issue is, a lot of the time we bombard people with so much content and choices, it just overwhelms and confuses. People cannot cope with that, so they leave and they'll go elsewhere. So I'm not saying I'm teaching anything that people don't already know. Like I said, I'm providing a process that really explains it, because people follow it through. Also, as the designer or developer, when somebody completes this and goes through it with you, you can see it so clearly. They often can't.
I like that you have these graphics everywhere. You talk about it, but then you have these graphics that lay it out. What you've done here as an instructional designer, whether you think this is a course or not, what you've done here is that you've addressed those people who do better with reading the words, and there's people who have to see the picture. That are much more visual. I think you've hit it both ways. I know when I went through this, I thought this is something everyone needs to see, because I went through many of these steps myself and went, oh, I see. Now I went and made some changes to my own stuff based on this. It can help everybody. I like the graphics a lot.
To be honest, I'm a visual learner as well. We have to hit the text, people who like the text and following the text. Then you've got the video and you've got the graphics that just help cement it. Because if you think your clients have too much text and it's difficult to explain. If you're thinking you're trying to explain it to somebody that isn't a web designer, that they run a manufacturing business, they don't know anything about messaging and websites and having really good customer experience on your website and finding things and great UX, they don't know. Why should they? They shouldn't.
They have competing business priorities every day, all day. They have a business to run. And even though you think the website should be number one top of mind for them every single minute of every single day because it is with you, it's usually not with them. Yeah. You have to gently guide them, break it down, give them tools like this to help them get through these difficult things of not knowing what to write or not knowing what to say.
Your client knows because it's their business, it's them. You're like an extracting machine. You're going to pull all this. They just say, they talk about it. What they tell you is you put it in this process and it comes out as something that's going to work for the website. You're not expecting the client to do what you can do. It's a tool to help extract the right information. As we go down and start laying the foundations for content, again, we've got the kind of pictorial here of a typical layout for a homepage, but then we digress and we're going to go on to looking, there's some planning to go on, put things over here, put things over there, move things around, see where things go. By the end, when we go on to the other pages, it starts to suddenly become much, much clearer. As you go through, some prompts as well. The idea is that these prompts are going to help write notes. These prompts are going to help to think, right, well, this needs to be said, this needs to be talked about. This is not going to come away with every single word for the homepage. That's when you then need that further expertise. But the process is going to be so much easier because you know what all this is going to be and what it's all going to say. At the end of this, your client could, in their own words, write the content. Doesn't mean it's good enough to get published. But the point is, they've written it in their language, in their words, in their way of explaining, in a way that's really understandable. It can be polished, it can be copy edited, it can be reworded, but the emphasis, because the core and the message and the identity, when you get a professional to come in and help with copy editing, copywriting, that core will not be lost, because a professional copywriter would be able to pick up on that and project that throughout everything. At the end of the day, the business owners, it's their business, it's their way, it's their language, it's their clients. It's just an extraction process. So that's what it looks like, but also it has to be step by step. You have to do this in phases. The first two phases or the first three phases are quite short. They set the scene and you can go on from there. This last section is the heaviest section, section 6, with the foundations of content. You'll find when you use it with your clients, the light bulb goes on. That's the feedback I've had with owner managers I've worked with who have used this and tested this. They say, it helped me see it from a different perspective. They get so bogged down with everything else that's going on, running their own business, that they can't see how it always comes across simply for the people that they want to work with.
Yeah, this is great. So I wanted to read to you something. I don't know how to pronounce his first name, so I'm going to call him Rich. Asensio, I believe is his name. He says, I bought Imogen's whiff back in early November, went through all the content and found it awesome. I'm starting my business as a web design developer, WordPress agency. I am still thinking and iterating, note-taking, sketching as to my business identity, how to brand it, present it, etc. The whiff gives me something to stick to, meaning questions to ask myself to get more understanding and clarity as to what I want to achieve in my business, how I want to present myself. It's a long one, okay? How I want to present myself in the most authentic way, and a streamlined process to follow and go through to achieve it. I'm sure as I start in this new business journey of mine, the whiff is going to help me a lot with my future clients. In my humble opinion, I consider it a great resource.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rich.
So if they want to get it, they go to the link after the video goes live on Facebook. I'll add it to the comments too, just to make sure. So they've got the link.
Yeah.
But you did say that you were going to give a discount to people watching this video. And what was that coupon code again?
Yeah, it's WP Roadmaps 50. At the moment, the price is $249 US. If you use that code, you will get $50 off the price of the cliff.
That's fabulous. So I put it in the chat already, WP Roadmaps 50, and that'll give you $50 off the price. I'm already spoken to Imogen about this, as she's going to be added as an instructor in the WP Project Managers Academy. Can't really decide where to put you, if I should put you into content collection or client management, because this is sort of client management at its core.
It's bridging between the two. And just to go back to something as well you said about Content Snare. So I don't know if you know, but one of the early adopters of Content Snare, I've worked with James Rose, who is the Content Snare guy. He and I are going to hook up and talk about how we can template some stuff into Content Snare.
Yeah, that's great, because he's been promising those templates forever.
Yeah, well, they've just had a massive UX change. So
I mean, not your templates, but he's been promising pre-done templates with everything in there you need in terms of instructions to give the client so that you could just edit it. He's been promising that for a long time. So I'm glad to know that he's working with an expert, because in my content collection roadmap, that's the tool that we recommend for that too. There are other tools that can be used, y'all, because if you're already heads down into WP feedback, it can also be used as a content collection tool. But I still recommend Content Snare because it keeps it out of the website, and clients will get distracted by the actual website if you try to do content and design at the same time.
I think ultimately it depends what works for your client. I found clients that are quite tech minded, and they like this kind of the tech approach. It's a bit like the WIF. They would probably go for a Google slide, and we can talk, and I can type notes in the bottom of the Google slide in its format. But there are other people who don't want to use any kind of tech. You can have the PDF broken down, and they can write notes, they can print it off if they want. That's why it's trying to be kind to trees and printer ink and things like that.
See,
I think I might be writing to everybody. I'm probably going to roll something out from January onwards, because I think people are a bit up to here
right now
with this year. I'd like to do some mini workshops and try and cater for, because I have quite a few people that signed up from Australia, UK and US. I want people to get the value. So at the moment, it's a one-off fee. How I progress that with adding some add-ons, we'll see. But yeah, that won't change, and the content will be kept up to date. It's had a couple of iterations already. It's always up to date, and that's where we're at the moment. So yeah, just a one-off fee.
Okay. Imogen, thank you so much. Just by the number of people who showed up for this live and the number of people that have commented, this has been so helpful. I can tell people are really resonating, because more comments and more interaction than we typically get on these lives on Monday.
I think because I've been there, like all of us have, with this for ourselves, I found that people don't talk about it either. That was the one thing I wanted to change. I wanted people to talk about and know it's okay to not really know.
As you were going through this, Imogen, you know what I was thinking? This is like a therapy session.
Yeah, definitely. It is.
If you're struggling with what to call yourself, whether you're a developer or a designer or a freelancer, you could call yourself a WordPress therapist.
Yeah. Maybe you've started a thing now. I'm AKA the WordPress therapist.
But Imogen, again, thank you for getting on here at 8 o'clock your time in the evening.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
And you know what I always say at the end of these things: stay productive, stay strong, and never stop learning. Thanks, Imogen.
Thank you. Bye.